My name is Jasmine Harvey, Student Engagement Specialist here at Mississippi Public Broadcasting. On behalf of the MPB Education Department, we would love to welcome you all to Workforce Wednesday. We would love to know who is joining us today, so please use the chat feature to let us know who you are and what organization you represent. You may also use the chat feature to ask any questions. Before I introduce our guest panelists for today, I want to give a quick overview of our workforce initiative. In 2018, MPB received a 2-year grant from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting to create a workforce development initiative. Our initiative, Getting to Work Mississippi, focuses on advancing education and career readiness. We work with partners to assess challenges and opportunities and produce videos focused on career pathways and the essential skills needed to be successful. We highlighted careers in these 5 key industry sectors: energy, manufacturing, healthcare, information technology, and logistics. Through this initiative, we learned not only are students not fully aware of career paths available to them, but they are also lacking those necessary soft skills to be successful. So we produced a fun soft skills video series addressing the do's and don'ts in the workplace. Also, out of our initiative, Workforce Wednesday was born. These meetings are hosted every third Wednesday of the month, and we are glad that you have joined us today. All the videos and registration for Workforce Wednesday are available on our website at education.mpbonline.org. And don't worry, I will add the website to the chat. Now it's time to start our program. Let's welcome our moderator, Jermaine Flood, who will lead our program discussion for today.
Good morning to you all. I'm Jermaine Flood, podcast host and moderator for this great discussion this morning. I would like to welcome you all for joining us during this Workforce Wednesday today. And our guest panelists for this discussion are going to include Miss Kimsey Smith. She is here with us today, and we thank her for joining us as well. Miss Kimsey Smith is the Director of Workforce Development for the Hinds County Economic Development Authority. Also joining us today, Mr. Pat Fontaine. He's the Executive Director of the Mississippi Hospitality and Restaurant Association. Also in attendance with us, we have Jonathan Barnett, the Coordinator for Jobs for Jacksonians with the City of Jackson, and Dr. Bill Ashley, Director of Business Research, Workforce, and Energy with the Mississippi Development Authority. So I would like to welcome our guest panelists and thank them for joining us today. And we're just going to go ahead and get started. Now, the pandemic has caused a state of crisis of sorts for workforce development in the U.S., and Mississippi, of course, has not been spared when it comes to this issue. Now, one reason America's employers are having trouble filling jobs was starkly illustrated in a PBS NewsHour report. Americans are quitting in droves. The Labor Department said that quits jumped to 4.3 million in August, the highest on records, dating back to December of 2000 and up from 4 million in July. Now, this data helps fill in a puzzle that is looming over the job market. Hiring slowed sharply in August and September, even as the number of jobs was near record levels. Yet overall hiring has declined slightly during that time. The jump in quits strongly suggests that the fear of the Delta variant is partly responsible for the shortfall in workers. Now, in addition to driving quits, fear of the disease probably caused plenty of those out of work to not look for or even take jobs. And in addition to that, rising wages have led some businesses to actually steal workers away. And the pandemic may have caused burnout that has led people to deciding that some jobs just, you know what, they aren't worth the stress. So we're going to try to get to the bottom of all of this. But as COVID-19 cases surged in August, quits soared in restaurants and hotels from the previous month and rose in other public-facing jobs such as retail and education. Now, moving on, around town, let me know now. Give me a nod, a reaction, a hand raise, an amen if you have seen some of these signs around town. I mean, literally everywhere you go. You can go to the grocery store, you can go to the fast food restaurant, you can basically almost even go to your doctor and see one of these now hiring signs. And we want to know, I'm want to know myself what is happening, what is going on, why aren't people filling these positions? So hopefully by the end of this discussion, we'll get some kind of leeway, some kind of insight into exactly what is going on in the state here. But these signs have been popping up in cities across the state and across the U.S. And with a 55.9% labor participation rate, Mississippi's number of residents actively working or seeking work is about where it was now before the pandemic. But as you all know, that rate still leaves Mississippi nearly in last place for labor participation in the country, according to the latest data from July. Jobs in manufacturing, trade and trucking, construction, and the service industry brought back the most positions in recent months, but that normal that Mississippi was approaching in terms of workforce is still behind the rest of the nation in terms of wages and general worker participation. Still, the state, though, has steadily added new jobs at a higher rate than the national average since the beginning of the pandemic. So has the South in general. But Mississippi had 41,000 more jobs in the state this July than it did July prior. That's July of 2020. But clearly, judging from those signs, those positions have not yet been filled. So we're going to get to the bottom of that, and hopefully our guest panelists will help us dig down deep into why this is happening. But our Workforce Wednesday panelists today will help us hash that out and what trends maybe they've seen in workforce development over the past year and a half and how they were affected and the solutions they may have implemented thus far or would like to implement to help combat the issue. So I want to go ahead and get started and get them introduced to you all. Ms. Smith, if you could come on and give our audience a brief overview of your role with the Hinds County Economic Development Authority, and then following Ms. Smith, Mr. Fontaine, you will be next in line.
Okay, good morning to everyone in attendance. I hope everyone is having a great morning. Once again, my name is Kimsey Smith, and I'm the Workforce Director here at Hinds County Economic Development Authority. And my role here at the authority is to assist businesses, existing businesses, and new businesses entering into Hinds County or into the metropolitan area to help them identify their skill needs for their current workers that they're looking for or the workers that they already have. As we know that in some cases there are skills gaps. And so we try to be that connection piece between the community colleges and the businesses to reduce that gap and provide the training that their employees need at that time. Sometimes we also work with other agencies. Once again, as I say, we work with the other agencies to be that connection piece, just ensuring that we do have the workforce in Hinds County, in Mississippi, that will be able to fill that new company needs as they come into the area.
Well, thank you for what you do, and thank you for joining us. Mr. Fontaine, now if you could explain your position with the Mississippi Hospitality and Restaurant Association.
Certainly, and thank you for having me today. I'm Pat Fontaine. I'm Executive Director of the Mississippi Hospitality and Restaurant Association. We are the trade association that represents the hospitality and restaurant industries here in Mississippi. Our mission is to unify, foster, and promote the industries in Mississippi. We are the advocates here in Mississippi for hotels, motels, and restaurants.
Thank you so much for joining us as well. Mr. Barnett is up next. Following him will be Dr. Ashley. But Mr. Barnett, now as coordinator for the City of Jackson's Workforce Development Initiative, Jobs for Jacksonians, what exactly does your position entail?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for allowing me to be a representative here with the City of Jackson. But what we do more specifically here with the Jobs for Jacksonians program is that we serve as a liaison between the private sector and the public sector. And this is part of the process is to talking to good people like you. And me and Ms. Smith, I've had the pleasure of meeting her last year, and it's a pleasure to see Mr. Fontaine. This is part of what we do. This is a networking aspect as well, because a lot of people know that job opportunities are available, but they may not know how to exactly go about as far as attracting those jobs that they qualify for. And so in a nutshell, this is what we do. We partner with other companies that's looking for immediate workers, individuals that may need some career and professional development training as well. This is what we do each and every day. And of course, we do see hiring signs everywhere within the city of Jackson and Jackson metro area.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, Dr. Ashley, if you could explain your role as the director with the Mississippi Development Authority.
Good morning, everyone. I work here at the Mississippi Development Authority, which is the lead economic development agency for the state. We work here in research to provide support for our project managers as we work with existing business and industry on expanding their operations. We also work with recruiting firms from the outside of the state into Mississippi. As you know, we're a very business-friendly state. So we work to recognize and look for these opportunities, and then as well as working with our international trade department on either establishing trade relations with businesses in other countries or with working on other countries' firms coming to invest in Mississippi with foreign direct investment. We work on the demand side, if you will, for labor. MDA mostly works with state and local authorities to work with infrastructure improvements as well that help facilitate these firms to expand or to come to Mississippi. And a part of that, we have to also cast a vision for where our workforce is. And we also work well with the new state agency, the Office of Workforce Development, or Accelerate Mississippi. So I essentially have 2 staff meetings. I work with them as well as MDA, and working to bridge that gap between the supply side on the labor as far as employees, as well as the demand side with employers.
All right, good stuff. I think between the 4 of you all, we are going to get some questions answered, or and we're going to get some kind of tactical information that we'll be able to use. So let's go ahead and begin our Workforce Wednesday Workforce Development Panel discussion. Now, getting started, we'll have the first 3 questions will be aimed at all of you all. We can start with Ms. Smith, and we can go on from there in that same order that we just did. So you each will answer that question separately, and then we'll break out into individual questions, and then after that we'll conclude. So first question right out the bat, Ms. Smith, as it relates to the state of Mississippi workforce development at the onset of the pandemic now, what issues arose at that time in your respective agency that were discussed related to the immediate future of jobs in the state?
Okay, well, at the beginning, we did not identify any issues because we did not, like everyone else, we did not expect the pandemic to be this long, 2 months, 3 months, and we thought we were going to be back at work. However, because we do not work hand in hand as my counterparts with job seekers, we did not identify issues and have not identified issues. Our role became more of a support role to our counterparts and to the businesses out there as to how can we assist you with keeping your employees at work, getting them back to work, and making sure that you have those safety measures in place that when they come back to work, that they will be safe in their respective industry area.
Right. Mr. Fontaine, and you?
There we go. Along the lines of what Ms. Smith had to say, we represent the interest of our members, and certainly when the pandemic began, what was weighing heavy on the mind of restaurant owners was, am I going to have to lay off or furlough my employees? And many of our members did. And the concern there is, well, when and if that time comes, for them to return, will they? And certainly, what steps do I need to take to create the safest work environment for them to return? So those were the major concerns at the onset of the pandemic during shelter in place.
Right off the bat. Now, Mr. Barnett, this is a great question because I know you deal with a lot of networking. How was that transition, and what was happening at the top of the pandemic for you?
Yes. Us with the city of Jackson, I guess you could say when things really hit the fan of March of 2020 last year, we definitely had to put things in place to protect ourselves as workers within the city of Jackson, because we use this, I would say the first 3 months to use it as a learning curve as to what works, what not, at the same time while trying to protect ourselves and also our coworkers. And so I would say that definitely by the summer of 2020, we figured out that, hey, there's a lot of companies here, definitely in hospitality, definitely say, for example, restaurants that pretty much gives me a call every week. And so I said, well, this is what we can do. We can follow the CDC guidelines, definitely to the best of our ability. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have one premier job fair, so to speak. There's just one company, and we're following the guidelines to the T. X amount of people inside, the protection materials and things of that nature. And that's what we've been doing. And then also hearing people from the neighborhoods and also associations and things of that nature, as far as because everyone in their family have people that's looking for a better opportunity or looking to enter the workforce. And so we kind of met them where they're at from an employer-led solution standpoint.
Yeah. And Dr. Ashley, you with your position, did you see anything happening?
With the onset of the pandemic last year, I was in a different role. I was transferring, from the world of academia into the world of economic development. And at the beginning of the pandemic, I was dealing with uncertainty, like everyone else was. As far as my college faculty and staff, the safety of students. Were we going to continue operations? We did work with existing technologies and move to online labor, or service delivery. So we did that. Also, too, as I transitioned to this role, the same thing was happening here with the firms in Mississippi. I know HR directors probably were cringing when they heard the term essential versus non-essential employees. I know that was a big thing too. I know people were facing furloughs in private industry across the state. Some of the firms that we work with that we incentivize to increase their capacity to grow their industrial capacity and also hire people, they're on the hook for those jobs. They promise for the incentives that we offer them. A lot of private businesses had a lot of concerns, had a lot of visits to work out how we would work with them as far as attracting the employees that they needed. I know our Mississippi Works Fund. We had that's a workforce training fund that we had. We had some existing projects that were ongoing, but it all but dried up. Firms were not necessarily worried about later on training employees. They were worried about just existing. So a lot of uncertainty, a lot of new ways to try to think through the situation. Little did we know that a pandemic of this nature was going to hit us, and nor would we know. But I know we've had, I guess, the flu pandemic of the early 20th century, and then we had this one. So I guess we can. I hope not have to look forward to another one in our lifetimes. But right. I know it causes us to have to alter our thinking.
All right, correct. And that's what I want to talk about next is the altered thinking. So let's just take it 6 months from March of 2020. Now we're into the pandemic. We're figuring out mask wear. We're figuring out what to do PPE wise. We're figuring out what to do vaccine wise. And so when it comes down to workforce development, did you happen to see an influx in anything, like I guess a supply and demand type of deal when it comes down to people wanting jobs or people needing to be placed or jobs needing to get the word out there? And what did you all do to pivot to match this, I guess, demand in a sense, Ms. Smith?
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. That's okay.
Like I said, because we are not hands-on, we're more the connection piece. We really didn't have to pivot because we just didn't have to because we're just the connection piece. And so we still was just that support system for the businesses and the agencies, and making sure that they knew what they can who they can contact for if they didn't have the PPE or whatever equipment they need, or just the venting to that the employees were not coming in. And we know that the employees weren't coming in because of the uncertainty and the safety, and the vaccine wasn't readily available at the time. So it was just really stay the course for us and continue to be the support system.
Right. Was there maybe an influx in volume of the amount of support that you all had to assist with versus before the pandemic?
Now that, yeah, a lot of more Zoom calls and phone rings.
Right.
It was fine, but that was just it for us. Just a lot of more Zoom calls and phone rings, and being on the phone, not just with local businesses, but with businesses out of state, they're just asking how are you all handling it in Mississippi.
Mr. Fontaine, and you, was there an influx, and what did you all do maybe to pivot around your area?
Well, for our members, of course, during shelter in place, the only option was drive-through or curbside pickup and delivery. So for those operations that did not implement drive-through or delivery in their business model, they began to offer that, and so they slowly brought staff back. And at those reduced levels, they had adequate, staff to accomplish that. Now, as we began to open up, I think we went to 50% capacity in the dining areas. But it was a challenge to find enough employees to come back to be adequately staffed. As I tell people, we actually had a shortage of labor prior to the pandemic. Going back to 2019, I can tell you of a restaurant in the metro area that had the sign you see so often now, due to a shortage in staff, please expect longer than normal wait times.
Right.
That was occurring in 2019. Also, the fast food segment was suffering at that time as well. The main reason being that people were leaving our industries to find higher paying jobs, which they did. So the pandemic has kind of necessitated a look at the labor for our industries, compensation, training programs. What can we do to attract and retain employees for our industry? So that's when you started to see, signs that you showed earlier. And, now to attract labor, offering higher wages, benefits packages that have been unprecedented in our industry, and just, an overall revamping of how our industry has approached labor.
Right. And I just want to say I'm somewhat invested in the restaurant industry because my brother is a waiter. So I did notice the thing about him was he went from a waiter to a desk job before the pandemic. And then when the pandemic hit, he moved from the desk job back into a waiter position. So I know that toss and turn with, the restaurant industry is something
Yes.
that's big. Hey, quick question. The pandemic, do you think in addition to them leaving for wages, do you think maybe fear of the pandemic?
Oh, most definitely. There was, a fear of the exposure that kept a lot of people from returning at that time.
Right.
And today, where we're, seeing some employers mandating vaccinations, we see a fear of vaccination actually in some instances. So
Right.
most definitely that played a huge part in that.
Right. Well, we're going to pivot from here, and I'm going to start with Mr. Barnett. I'm going to get you, start with you a different question, Mr. Barnett. Now, when during this last year did you actually feel the impact in your agency, and can you tell us what that looked like for you?
Okay. I can definitely say once Governor Reeves had eliminated the extra federal benefits, number one, I think that was one of the things that was a driving force to when we were doing events and we saw more and more people turning out trying to get jobs.
Right.
Now that's one component. Now you do have another component as to where some people are still getting benefits, depending where they are in their station in life. But I will definitely say it depends on the company and the industry that are looking for positions. For example, UMC. I've hosted job fairs for them quite a few times. Huge turnout. And I realized it's very quickly, but I realized that it takes more to run a hospital than doctors and nurses because they had people that it was in dire need of people. Somebody has to change those beds. Somebody has to mop those floors. Somebody has to buff those floors. And they had an array of job openings, for example, and you really see how interconnected we are. definitely as it relates to workforce development. Just as a quick example. Hopefully that's sufficient. I know you're on time frame.
No, that was great. That was great, especially when it deals with all that networking and things like that. I really wanted to know exactly, how that did impact you all. Now, Dr. Ashley, you as the same, did you actually feel that impact within your agency, and could you define what that looked like? Just Dr. Ashley, make sure you unmute yourself.
I'm sorry.
That's fine.
I'm sorry, y'all.
That's fine.
With our firms that had signed up, with their commitments to us for job creation, we work with them along with MDES on working with getting people that were willing and able to work in these roles. I know as far as Mississippi Works funds that went to job training, I extended deadlines to continue to work with those firms, just pushed them out, further. Had to have logistics of getting instructors in and people that knew how to use equipment to teach others. So we worked with that. I know from the standpoint of, the agency as a whole, we were very busy, strangely enough. 2020 was a strong year for us. We had $1.9 billion in capital announcements as far as investments in the state, and over 5,000 some odd jobs. At the same time, we're working with the existing business industry to try to help them staff their jobs. As far as 2020 goes, we worked 181 projects, and there were probably 150 the year before. So strangely enough, you had some companies looking for opportunity. I know we had the Back to Business program that was administered through MDA. There's $115 million that went into small businesses that were 50 and under. Then we had the Mississippi Rental Assistance Program, which we had about $13 million that went into that program as well. And probably late spring or late first quarter, we really started working with a lot of companies on trying to get them staffed up, working with MDES, working with the community colleges, working with the WIN job centers. We were working to have phone calls, virtual job fairs, working with some firms to start new Mississippi Works grants with new training dollars. We started working with Ryan Miller from the Accelerate Mississippi group, and a lot of activity in the first quarter of 2021. I would like to say too that I'm an optimist, and sometimes optimist in times of dire circumstance people don't like. But think about this: MDES probably has the best data. They have the most number of people that look for their unemployment benefits, and that's the best correct data we've got on them. We know where they live, we know their contact information. So for anything, I think that's a good starting point. And we had a lot of interagency cooperation to try to work with private business to get their staffing done. So that's kind of what we did this past year. But again, it really picked up the latter part of the first quarter of 2021.
Yeah, it's always nice to see the glass half full. That's okay, Dr. Ashley. That's okay. I'm not going to hate you for it. So we're just going to jump right into our last couple of questions. Now, as it relates to the future of workforce development in the state, what challenges do you expect for the new year ahead for your respective agencies? Ms. Smith, you can start that off.
Our biggest challenge as we move forward into the new year is making sure that when we bring businesses, new businesses into Mississippi, that they ensure that the employees have competitive wages. We're making sure that they make sure that they have great benefits. Everyone wants to work and be able to sustain and take care of their family. But coming in at $7.25 an hour is not going to help our citizens in Mississippi. And so we need to make sure that we fight to get them the right and appropriate wages. And just recently, last week, I talked to a new business who is moving into Hinds County, and they're starting their employees off at $15 an hour and with benefits. And that includes 2 weeks of training. Paid $15 an hour. So making sure that the industries understand and current businesses understand they're going to have to increase the wages in order to get people back into their job, because people want to be able to take care of their family, and those that have childcare want to be able to afford childcare so they can go back to work.
Yes, ma'am. I feel you on that one. The wages are definitely one. And Miss Smith, I thank you because you answered a twofold question. So everybody following you is now gonna have to twofold it. So, Mr. Fontaine, for you again, the challenges maybe that you expect for the new year, and then the second fold of that is maybe what are some of the possible solutions for the hiring crisis?
Well, and I mentioned it earlier. Um, this has necessitated a look at wages and benefits for employees in our industry. So, and you see that I believe the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics in August, the average hourly wage for our industry was $16, I believe, and 46 cents. So that is quite an increase. And speaking with members and what they're paying their staffs, that is falling in line. So, and like I mentioned, also seeing benefits offered that are unprecedented in our industry, medical, dental, and vision coverage, employer match on retirement, paid vacation. Uh, Looking at that so we can make these jobs attractive to get them back, and then with training, investing that time into their employees, to make them more skilled in these positions. Something that we have in Mississippi uh, at the high school level is a curriculum developed by the National Restaurant Association Education Foundation called ProStart. And we have it in over 40 career and technical programs across the state. And that's an effort for the youth that are about to enter into the workforce, provide them with the knowledge and skills necessary to enter into it, or if they're seeking a post-secondary education to help them advance there. For those employees that are currently in the industry, the National Restaurant Association Ed Foundation developed a program just before the pandemic began called Serve Success. And it was an accreditation program at three levels, one for just the entry level employee, second for those in supervisory roles, and then third for those in management roles. And we're hopeful that that will continue on, but we're well aware that we have to invest in our employees to, number one, attract them, and number two, retain them.
Right. Now, Mr. Barnett, what we've got right now as solutions, wages, benefits, and training, I know we can't give them the world, but what can we do maybe as a solution, and what challenges do you see for the next year?
That's a great question. I would say that we can't give them the world, but I would definitely say that we can lead them to the water if there's a lake or an ocean upon the horizon. And I think this Fontaine has pretty much has said it already. Essentially, what it is upscaling workers. As it relates in 2021 today, in order for one to live a decent, good middle class life, one has to have some skills that are transferable. And so each and every day, that's why we have a strong relationship with our not only with companies in the private sector, but also with younger people. I would guess you could say Gen Zers, if you will. We want them to not only go to college, but if you go to college, make sure that at the end of the day, you at least will have the benefit of having a job that pays you some money. In other words, STEM. It's pretty much not STEM because we don't want people, and definitely here in Jackson, right? We understand what the tax rate is and what it is in Jackson here. We don't want people going to colleges and when they graduate, they're already in a hole with student loan debt. And that's one of the issues there. And then we have a great array of community colleges here that one can make a good living. You got Hines Community College, which is one of the most awesome community colleges, in my humble opinion, in the southeast part of the United States of America. And so that is what we are leading our people towards. Definitely, if they come under difficult circumstances, if people have money to send their kids for art history, God bless you. But once you get that art history degree and you move to Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, don't be surprised you're not getting paid any money. Those are just the cold hard facts that what we are preaching. to people, because this pandemic has taught people that, hey, you know, you was going to the grocery stores, it was hard to get toilet paper, it was hard to get food items, and then you thought very hard and more serious about your life and what you want your life to become. And so therefore, with that being said, you know, it makes what I do a little bit more easy because people meet us halfway. I'm pretty sure Ms. Smith and Mr. Ashley and Mr. Fontaine can attest to this, is that when you talk about people's money, a sense of humility will come out of them as a part of anything else that people may talk about. And hopefully that was a twofold that satisfied their question.
It did, and you shouted out my alum. Hi. And finally, I'm going to end with you, Dr. Ashley. What are some of those challenges and maybe some of the solutions that you see?
Well, on a good note, MDES just opened up some data that talked about the average annual wage is now at $42,476 a year. I think in 2019 it was around 39,000 or so. So that's positive. That's going to increase the standard of living, so to speak. And I kind of think of it on both the supply side and the demand side too, Miss Flood. I worked at Hines as an economics instructor, so I hope not to bore you to death. But on the supply side, you know, we have such a great community college system. In the past 10 years, we doubled our degrees as far as the associate's degrees, applied science, and certificates from a little over 12,000 to about 24,000 over the past 10 years or so. On the workforce side, we have about 100,000 folks per year, anywhere from 80 to 100,000 that go through 270 some odd thousand training sessions, and that increased their earnings, you know, a couple $1,000s, and I think they're actually over the average salary. So, you know, I'm going to continue to push more training programs like the community colleges offer. It should be earlier. We should be looking for populations who've been underrepresented. We need to look for younger high school students and work with them to get them either internships or apprenticeships in business and industry. You know, we got to look for the best way to avoid disruptions with our school population as far as that goes, because when school's out and they're going virtual, then you're having childcare issues, and that hurts because either some spouse or family member is going to have to stay out of the workplace and work with that child or children at home. So we got to work on that. But, you know, recruit people that have high school equivalents. You know, we have about 400,000 or so folks that didn't graduate high school, give or take. And when folks work on that degree, we need to reward that and hire them. And then I know we also have people that are nonviolent, less than 10 years to serve, and they get out of Mississippi's prisons, and they need to have an opportunity. On the demand side, as we've seen across the state, and I work with several companies on this, we got to look at the wage structure. You know, I know that a lot of people don't want to look at that because they're looking at a tight margin already, but I think it's very important if you want to attract the best and brightest. But also too, you can look at how your work structured, look at how some of these technology firms have structured their work environment, kind of make it, you know, a way for folks to be there, to be creative, and also add to the product. Let them know that their opinions matter. So that's kind of something that doesn't necessarily cost you much. You may gain on the other side by getting a good idea. But we know that, you know, challenge-wise, we're going to have, you know, costs go up. That's a foregone conclusion given the amount of monetary and fiscal stimulus that's in the economy in response to the pandemic. So we also have people that our population, our boomers, are retiring out. They may retire out earlier because of the risk of potential infection. So you've seen a lot of people, you know, change their priorities and either gear it down or totally get out. I know MZ, which is Economic Modeling Incorporated, is a company we use a lot of their data. It talks about the sensdemic and how people are now, because they're boomers, they can afford to get out of the labor force. So those are all challenges, and hopefully there's a couple of solutions rolled in there. But again, that's kind of the way I see it.
Yeah, I like it. And Dr. Ashley, don't worry. I loved all the professors, former and current, at Hines. So the information was super tactical, and we could definitely use that. I would like to thank each and every one of our panelists today for just being so invested in Mississippi, so invested in the Mississippi workforce. Miss Kim C. Smith, Again, Director of Workforce Development for the Hinds County Economic Development Authority. Thank you. Mr. Pat Fontaine, the Executive Director of the Mississippi Hospitality and Restaurant Association. Thank you for sure. Jonathan Barnett, Coordinator for the City of Jackson's Workforce Development Initiative, Jobs for Jacksonians. We thank you. And of course, Dr. Bill Ashley, Director of Business Research, Workforce Development and Energy for the Mississippi Development Authority. Thank you so much, all four of you all, for your participation in this informative discussion. We have truly learned a lot. I know I have, and received some great info that we can take and put it to use, pandemic aside, that will help the advancement of workforce development for the state of Mississippi in the coming months and years. So I just thank you all so much. Right now, at this time, I will hand the reins over to our director, Dr. Tara Wren.
Good afternoon, and I will reiterate that, Jermaine. We've gotten so much information here. I do have a few. I'm here to do questions and answers, and so I'll get right to that. I have a few questions on the floor. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Fontaine. How can we get more information on those two programs that you mentioned there a little earlier?
You can visit our website at www.msra.org, or you can go to chooserestaurants.org. That's the website of the National Restaurant Association Education Foundation.
Okay. Thank you. I have just put all of our panelists' information in the chat, and with their website and their connections and how you can get to them or more information. And I believe that particular website is connected, what you just said, Mr. Fontaine. So thank you. The next question I have here is Ms. Smith. I think you spoke about competitive wages and benefits, and perhaps anyone can jump in about, and several of you spoke about this, but how do we really get there, and what is the time frame for getting there? Someone wanted to know that. And when we get there, will it last, or is that something that that reverts? Dr. Ashley, you have an answer to that?
Yeah, what was the gist of the question again? I'm sorry.
So how do we get to those competitive our employers to increase their wages and to provide more benefits? What's the likelihood of getting there across the board?
Well, from MDA's perspective, we can recruit firms that are going to drive aggregate demand up. And a part of that is on the supply side, we have to sell our population as people that are skilled and can be skilled up. So that's important because the outside is looking at us. That's what they want, to answer, or us to answer every time we have a conversation. So it's a two-pronged effort. On the demand side, we want to recruit harder for firms that are going to pay Mississippians a higher wage, and a lot of times it's going to be, they're selling a product that's very highly valued. If we think about the history, agricultural products typically sell for X amount. But then when we process or refine those products, they're higher value added, and we can sell them to outside states or outside countries. So whether it be agricultural products or advanced manufacturing products like automobiles or parts, we want to look for recruiting firms here on our side. We also want to look for opportunities to sell to outsiders within Canada or Mexico, their closest trading partners, closest neighbors, but also to expand that into the rest of the world. On the supply side, everybody needs to think about work earlier. If you're 13 or 14 years old, you really need to have a career path. And I know we're working some programs in schools to get them concentrated on thinking about career sooner. I know when you're 14 and 16, those are some pivotal points as far as working. We need to have more work-based learning opportunities, internships, externships, apprenticeships, and that needs to continue on through the community college age, which could be anywhere in Mississippi from 18 to 60. So there's some opportunities that we should look to capture.
Thank you. And so if there are employers on here, what I hear you saying is that employers can also hook up with community colleges, which we have great community college system here in the state of Mississippi. If there are new programs that need to be developed for to create that skilled workforce. Is that what I'm hearing you say as well?
And the Accelerate Mississippi is working to have better outcomes as far as the workforce enhancement training funds. and also to our Mississippi Works Fund goes with that. So we're trying to work towards more effective programming, more outcome-driven approach to what happens with these funds. So that's starting, or I say starting. We've been doing this, but we're trying to be more intentional. We're trying to be more coordinated, and we're trying to make sure that we're giving the taxpayer the most bang for their buck. So that's on the training side. And I know there are firms that work with the local planning and development districts that are the designated local workforce development areas, and they work side by side with those workforce development areas as well as the community colleges to develop training programs that are germane to the industries in our state and our locales throughout the state. And again, that strong community college, at the local level is important, but then with Accelerate Mississippi, the goal is to try to have a top-down approach to funnel big dollars into those local economies.
Right. Thank you. So the next question is, with all those signs that we are seeing around the state of Mississippi, and having read a few articles stating that folks are hiring those that are less skilled for the jobs they have open, are you seeing a transition in how new employees are being trained? And if so, what are some of those ways that and new training programs?
I'd say that necessity is the mother of invention. I think with that opportunity there presented to some folks that have not had those opportunities, I think it's great. Combine that with some formal institutionalized training through the community colleges and other training providers, I think that will probably add to their marketability going forward as their careers progress.
Yes. Mr. Fontaine, this is to you. How are the restaurants juggling increased food prices as well as trying to increase wages? How are they handling that? And what effect do you think that had on customer service and the number of folks they're able to hire in their restaurants?
Well, first with increased labor cost and increased food cost. I've been visiting with members this week, and you have no alternative. Food and labor costs combined are what's known as prime cost. And when your prime cost increase, you have to increase your menu prices to protect an already slim profit margin. And with our inflation that we're experiencing right now, the consumer is seeing increased prices at the gas pump. They're seeing increased prices for their other household goods. So the discretionary dining dollar is diminishing where menu prices are increasing. So that's going to lead to a decrease at the very least in the frequency of dining out for the average family. And that's going to lead to decreased sales for our restaurants. And increasing costs and decreasing sales, that's not a recipe for long-term viability, unfortunately. So they're doing the best they can.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I don't have any more questions, but I do know and see that our employers in the state of Mississippi, they are pushing, they are trying, they're looking for that trained workforce. And it is very good to hear from each of you today that a lot of thought has been put into this issue across the state of Mississippi in your prospective agency. So thank you for joining us again here today, Ms. Smith and Mr. Fontaine, Dr. Ashley, and Mr. Barnett. Mr. Barnett mentioned earlier about networking, and we're so happy to know that you know each other and that you're talking to each other. And with that, together, that's the word we heard during the pandemic. Together, we can all make this better, and we can help. We can help tell the young folks in our lives what to do, where to go, and help point them in the right direction on a career path. So we appreciate you for participating with us today again. And I think now is another pivot we'll make here, and we'll give away some prizes. So whoever's going to do that, thank you all.
All right, so up next we have door prizes, and so our audience engagement manager, Erica Shelton, will help me today, assist me in selecting those lucky participants that will win a door prize. All right, Erica, let me know if you're ready.
Okay, I am ready.
Here we go.
Congratulations, Cindy Gooden. You are our lucky winner.
All right, I think we should give it another spin. What do you think, Erica?
Let's spin it one more time. Congratulations, Dean Elps. You are a winner of our wonderful prizes. Let's spin it one more time, Jasmine. Okay, congratulations, Keenan Hilliard. You are our final winner for today, and congratulations to all of our prize winners. If you want a prize today, make sure that you email Jermaine Flood at jermaine.flood@mpbonline.org, and I will share that information right here. And these are the beautiful prizes that you're going to win: a portfolio, a nice bottle, a stationery, hand sanitizer, some good prizes there. So here's the email address, jermaine.flood@mpbonline.org. If you won your prize, email your mailing address and we will send it out to you as soon as possible. Once again, congrats. Next up, we will have announcements.
All right, so if you enjoyed today and received lots of information today that could be helpful to you and your community, your family, businesses in your community, come back next Wednesday and join us for the next Workforce Wednesday on November 17th, 2021. There's always good information at these workshops. Also, we have coming up here at Mississippi Public Broadcasting another conversation that we're going to host, and we're calling it Can They Catch Up? COVID-19's Impact on Student Learning. It is a virtual panel discussion that's happening November 2nd, 2021 from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Please check our website at education.mpbonline.org within the next week to register for that conversation. So if you've missed any of our Workforce Wednesdays, we have them all on our Getting to Work website at gettingtowork.mpbonline.org. Just go there and take a look at all the other workshops that we have had to gain more insight about our workforce development initiatives here in the state of Mississippi. And to keep up what we're doing here in the MPB Education Department, please become a member or log on and register for our newsletter. We send those out every month. So here are several ways that you can connect with us throughout your time when we're not together. Education.mpbonline.org is our website. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Once again, thank you for joining us today and stay connected.